Cashflow Diary podcast, episode 524.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast, the podcast that teaches you insider tips, tactics, and strategies for creating leverage streams of cash flow into your life. Learn from top-performing entrepreneurs, business owners, investors, and thought leaders from across the globe as they share their secrets to success. Like what you learn on this and other Cashflow Diary podcast episodes? Go to learninvestingnow.com and sign up to receive powerful tips and information that will help you succeed as an entrepreneur and investor. Now, here's your host, investor, entrepreneur, business owner, educator, speaker, author, and master facilitator of Robert Kiyosaki's cash flow game, Jay Massey.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Cashflow Diary podcast. I'm your host, Jay Massey, and I'm glad that you are here today because we are going to talk about something that we don't talk about enough, in my opinion, especially here. It's something that affects each and every one of you. It's definitely entered into my life in a very, very big way here recently. And I'm willing to bet that if we take more time right here with this one thing, every area, not just your business, but every area of your life will see significant, dare I say, monumental improvement. You're like, Jay, what on earth are we talking about today? I understand. We're going to be talking about mindfulness. We're going to be talking about mental health. Think about it. What it comes down to is the brain, your brain. It's a very useful tool, but do you take the time to take care of it? Your body. It's the thing that you and I are using to go out there to generate not only those ideas, but to implement and make great things happen for our customers. I have with me today someone who has a lot of experience in this area. She's going to be able to help you. She's going to be able to help me. And of course, I am talking about none other than Ora Nadrich. She is the founder and president of the Institute for Transformational Thinking and has a new book called Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity. I think this is going to be interesting because I know you've heard phrases like fake it till you make it. And you know what? I don't have to be, do I really have to be my true self, or do I have to be like this other person? And I think today we're going to get very deep lessons in how being our best version of who you are, building that person and becoming a better version will help all of us and our companies as well. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to take some time. We're going to take some notes because, see, Ora's had the privilege of being published in many places. In fact, you may have already read her in the Huffington Post or from her prior book, Says Who. So today, here's what you and I are going to do. We're going to listen, we're going to learn, and let's get ready to love Ora Nadrich. Ora, how you doing?
Hi, Jay. I'm doing really good. Thank you for having me today.
I am glad that you are here because this topic is important. Then that's kind of, I can't even think of a stronger word to say. So I'm kind of excited to have this conversation with you. And I know that those that are listening, they'll walk away better for it. Now, this is your first time here. So it being your first time here, I have to ask you the same question I tend to ask everybody else. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right. I tend to look at today's entrepreneurs a lot like yesterday's superheroes. Batman, Wonder Woman, Robin, Hulk, Black Widow, etc. Because I think entrepreneurs and superheroes have a ton of things in common. For example, occasionally as an entrepreneur, I can envision myself flying around town, using our products and services and saving our customers one sale at a time. And yes, I'm probably wearing a cape at that moment. Also, though, like a superhero, an entrepreneur has a beginning. For example, if you think about Spider-Man, there was a time where he was just a kid going to school, doing his thing, minding his own business, taking some photos, and then one day he gets bit by a spider, discovers he's got a superhuman ability, and now he's presented with a choice whether to use these abilities for good or for evil. So my question to you is as follows. Before your book, Live True, before Says Who, before being published in Women's Health magazines, Reader Digest, Conscious Lifestyle magazines, Fast Company, and all the other places, and before what we know you for today as a thought coach and mindfulness meditation teacher, what we want to know is, who is Ora Nadrich?
Great question. Great intro into that question. I love the whole notion of the superhero because for me, I always say a vision starts as a single thought in our mind. And the reason why we really identify with superheroes is because we see ourselves as them. And I think we're living in the 21st century, and it's a time now where we don't have to project onto something other than ourselves. We can imbibe the very thing that we think is so extraordinary, so powerful, so amazing, which we are. So to circle back to that question specifically that you're asking me, I consider myself a visionary. I consider myself someone who wants to manifest, who wants to actualize the vision that I hold in my mind's eye. Along the way on my life journey, I've done a bunch of things, really. Do you know, I was an actress for 10 years. And while I was acting, I sold a screenplay, which was pretty extraordinary for a young woman of 22, 23. And then, life, as John Lennon said, life is what happens when we're busy making other plans, And along the way on my life journey, I had a very unfortunate event happen. And that was that my older sister, Esther, who was the most extraordinary human being on the planet, as far as I'm concerned, she had a mental breakdown and she suffered with mental illness. And that really turned my world upside down. I was deeply affected by it, but it was a gift. Some of the most difficult, painful things on this life journey that we're on end up being our greatest gifts. And I call her truly one of my greatest teachers. That set me on a psycho-spiritual journey. I gave up acting and I wanted to know what makes up our thoughts, who are we, and I wanted to know everything I possibly could know about the thinking mind. And that is what got me to become a life coach, and then I became a thought coach, and I've written 2 books, as you mentioned, Says Who, How One Simple Question Can Change the Way You Think Forever, and my most recent book, Live True, a mindfulness guide to authenticity to take you up to the moment of now.
I love it. I love it. So I have a couple of questions because there's some things that you said that, speak to the entrepreneurial journey. But because it seems as though to me, where you are today is not exactly where you had envisioned yourself because you started out as an actress. Would that be a fair statement? Yeah,
absolutely. Very different than what I'm doing today.
So, and it sounds like that superhero moment or that thing that in your spider bite, if you will, was your sister, where it's like, okay, okay, perfect. I like this. So let me ask this question then. If you're in the entertainment industry, you're being an actress, you sold a screenplay, where does the courage come from for you to make the switch? Because that was, you're doing something that takes a significant amount of courage already, and then you say, no, I'm going to leave that behind for something completely different. Where did that come from?
Yeah, that's such a good question. What came to mind immediately is the whole concept of nature, nurture, like who we come in, what is our nature, our inherent nature, who we are. Each of us has that. And then how was it nurtured along the way? Now, one could say, well, everybody's been nurtured differently. There are people that have come into the world and they had tremendous obstacles to overcome. They came into the world with, parents that were drug addicts or poverty. And yet we know some of the greatest people who accomplished some of the most extraordinary things came from nothing. So the question that you're asking me is the question that I've asked about many people who I thought have done extraordinary things on the planet. What was the courage? What was that force? What was that bolt that pushed them forward, that pushed them onward, that helped them or inspired them or encouraged them to know that they could keep going? For me specifically, I think it's a combination of those things. I think I have a pretty strong nature. I come from strong nature people. Both of my parents My father's no longer alive. My mom is an amazing woman. She's still working today. She's, I don't think she's going to want me to tell you her age, but, I saw this woman. Yeah, I saw her be a housewife to 4 children and then literally take over a business and, turn it into a huge success. And she's still working today. And let me tell you, if I did tell you how old she was, it would blow your mind. She goes to the office every day. The other day I said to her, Mom, it's a torrential downpour. You might want to think about going, not going to work. She goes, what does that matter? Like, this woman is a force of nature. So I look at her and I think, you know what? I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And you know what, Jay? There's something that drives me. And I think that it really is, very much a part of what I teach. And that is to wake up each day in gratitude and be present, be in the moment of now. And what do you want this moment of now to be for you? As I say in my first book, Says Who, you are the creator and master of your internal dialogue, which creates your reality. Who do we think is writing the story of our life, if not us? So I'm about that. I'm about manifest that vision that you hold in your mind's eye. You can do that. You're in the driver's seat of your life. So a lot of what I teach, a lot of the quotes of mine that are out there, I really subscribe to. And I like to walk my talk, or as I like to say more currently, I like to walk my thoughts.
Like that. I've never heard that one. So that one's good. Let me ask you this question, though, because when it comes down to, you said being present and thinking about the process of becoming an entrepreneur, it's often fraught, as you mentioned, with obstacles and pressures and some of the most common things. It could simply be, self-doubt. What is it in your mind, in the way that you think, that enables a human to be able to overcome those things?
Well, I think it all comes down to our thoughts. I think that is really where we need to look. That, we think between 40 and 70,000 thoughts a day. I mean, just be with that.
But yeah. Okay. Hold on. Here's where I'm really going. We all think we're thinking. Like, I mean, I'm sure before this conversation, many people were like, yeah, I have thoughts already. I've got that down. But there still seems to be this issue where the thoughts are in the way, or the action and the results aren't there.
Exactly. And I think that, it's obviously, that saying, where energy goes is where energy flows. So a lot of the time where we get tripped up is we start to believe the thoughts that we tell ourselves. And yes, we all have the inner critic to varying degrees, but it's how much you want to really attach yourself to a thought that might tell you you're not going to be successful, or you're not going to reach that goal, or you're not going to become, the superhero, or whatever your goal is. It's like, if you're not going to believe that you can make that happen, then your thoughts are not going to support your vision. They're not going to support your goal. And that's how a lot of people drop out of the race.
Well, let me play the role of someone who's driving right now or walking their dog. And if they could, they would say to you, Ora, that those are my thoughts. I mean, how do I fix that?
Okay.
I can't do anything about that. Can I?
Yes, you can.
I know.
And I keep circling back to my first book, which I use the title a lot. And I've got so many people now saying it to me, which I love. And some of them say it very sassy, and I love it. And here's what I want to say. Says who? Who's telling yourself that? If it's not your own mind telling you thoughts, and I hear you. People ask me all the time, how do I do that? How do I stop my thoughts? Tell me what to do. Here's what I want to say. If someone came up to you, Jay, or me, and said all these terrible things to us, you're this, you're that, you're not going to be successful, you're worthless, you're unlovable, what do you think we're going to do? Are we going to go, oh, hey, yeah, you know what? I agree with you. Because you're telling me all those terrible things about myself. I'm going to throw myself under the bus, and I'm going to tell myself, yeah, you're right. I'm all those things. Talk about a huge says who. I'm supposed to believe that just because someone's telling me that? Well, let me tell you who's the biggest enemy of all, ourselves, and what we tell ourselves. We tell ourselves all sorts of things all the time. And you know what we do? We accept those nasty, undermining, mean, critical thoughts that we tell ourselves readily. And what I propose, I have a specific exercise that, and by the way, I did this in front of 250 entrepreneurs, and it's called Release and Replace. And it's a very easy exercise. Sometimes people don't like it so easy. Sometimes things are so easy that we're like, you know what, that's too easy. I need it more complicated.
Absolutely. Make me struggle for longer.
Yeah, make me struggle, make me suffer, make me grovel, let me crawl on all fours until I feel I deserve to make my life work.
Okay, but let's talk about that. Let's talk about this for a second, because there's a number of people who are listening. They're at the beginning of their journey and the evidence isn't around them. For today, today someone comes to you and says, or you're this, you're that, and you're like, whatever. It's not that difficult for you to, let that roll off your back. And I get that. That's today. But what is that person to do who's maybe all they've ever done is conformed to the status quo, but they've had this itch in the back of their being their entire life, but they have no physical evidence in reality at this moment that supports this new vision or this new version of who they want to be.
Fair enough. Okay, so let's take this and use something like what I think is really easy and what I also say is user-friendly. And I'm not dumbing this down. I'm just taking into consideration that there are people on all levels of self-awareness. So, and I want to talk to all of them. So I get that and I respect it. And by the way, I commend anybody who's taking that first step to want to change something out about themselves. I really applaud you and say, good for you for even wanting to change. Okay. As Gandhi said, be the change you wish to see in the world. Start one step at a time, one thought at a time. So if we use the release and replace technique as an example, I would say take one thought that you have that's a negative, one thought that's a downer, whatever you want to call it. It's just a thought that's not working for you. And one of the exercises that I have with that is you write it down and you crumple up that piece of paper. I have release and replace Post-its that I do. And I did this for, like I said, 250 entrepreneurs in an auditorium. I had them write down one negative thought. Maybe it's a thought that they thought of the minute I asked them about that thought. Maybe it's a thought that came into their head when they took a shower. Maybe it's a thought that's been gnawing at you for as long as you can remember. Write it down, crumple it up, and throw that piece of paper in a garbage can, light it on fire if it's in a safe setting, do whatever you want, but basically just let that thought go. And when you see that piece of paper, what I ask everybody is, you see that piece of paper that you crumpled up, and by the way, the force that these people threw this piece of paper, it was like they were throwing it across the room.
Right.
And I said, now I want you to look at that piece of paper that you crumpled on the floor. Do you want to take that back? Do you want to take that thought back? Do you want to uncrumple that piece of paper and put that back into your space, or better yet, back into your mind? Everybody gave me a resounding no. Right. And then when I said, I want you now to write down its positive counterpart. And that could be something as simple as, I'm unlovable, to I'm lovable. I'm never going to make it, to I am going to make it. I'm never going to be successful, to I am going to be successful. I'm never going to meet my soulmate, to I am. And then when they wrote down their positive counterpart to that negative, okay, do you want to crumble up that piece of paper? Do you want to throw it across the room? Nobody wanted to. So what that tells you is that we have the power to choose our thoughts. Where do we think we don't have the power? Now, listen, that thought may come creeping up on you again and again and again. And what you need to do is to be diligent and to be committed to switching it out. And what you're going to feel is something different in your body. If I say to you, I want you to tell yourself, I hate myself. And what does that feel like in your body to, I love myself? And how different does that feel in your body? And just be with it. Energetically, you're going to feel a different thing in your body. So these are simple, practical exercises to use to know what it feels like, to get the proof that people need, to see the difference, to feel the difference.
Ora, this is beginning to sound like work.
Oh, there you go. There you go. I love it. You're good, Jay, because you know what someone said to me? They said to me in an exasperated voice, they literally sighed. They went, "Oh, Ora, it's so much work to be self-aware."
It is, but there is less work though on the other side. But the reason you're here and the reason you do what you do is because the work is worth it, and who the human becomes on the other end is exactly, in my opinion, it's very, very exciting. But I have a question.
Okay.
Because I know there's someone thinking, I'm trying that. I want to do that. But all of these pressures and obstacles in day-to-day life, they keep bombarding me. How can I stay in what you called present when I have all of this stuff coming at me every day, all the time? All right, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I'm glad that you are enjoying what you are hearing thus far. But here's one of the things that's really important. One of the most important things that you can do is get started. One of the things that I've said before, and I say again, once you get started, stay started. But more importantly, there can be lots of roadblocks to getting started. So what we're going to do is we're going to remove one of those roadblocks for you and make it a little bit easier. Because the thing that I don't want to stop you is thinking, do I need a local number? How about a long distance number? Or should it be 800? How on earth am I going to make that happen so that people can contact me as I'm out there building my business, making my cash flow grow, but most importantly, understanding that it doesn't have to be difficult. Many of you may know, but if you don't, there's a company out there by the name of Grasshopper. And what I want you to do is I want you to go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow diary. Grasshopper is the entrepreneur's phone system. It works like a traditional phone system, but requires no hardware to purchase, no software to install. It's just a number that flat works. So if you are out there building that distributed workforce across many different locations, it's a way for you to still go out there and make your number be unified, simple, easy to use, something we've been using for quite some time. So again, go over to trygrasshopper.com/cashflow diary. Now, let's get back to the rest of the story.
Okay, so there are just some very simple, basic steps to take because we are bombarded. We are overloaded. We are overwhelmed more today than ever before. So I completely understand that, and it's true. And what we need to do is we need to make an effort to say, hey, time out, pause. We all need to pause. We got to put our devices down. We got to turn off the TV. We got to really shut out those voices. And then we even have to do something else. We have to work with the voices in our own head. And so how do we do that? There's things like meditation. There's something just called sitting quietly for 10 minutes and focusing on the breath. That's the number one anchor in meditation. I know a lot of people out there don't meditate. I am a meditation teacher, and a lot of people say to me, oh, hey, I don't have time to meditate. Okay. And, listen, it's like plucking a chicken. There's so many excuses. The next thing you know, all the feathers are off the bird. So what I want to say about that is, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to give of yourself? How are you willing to show up? Being in the present means you're showing up. You're showing up in this moment right now. And what do you want to bring of yourself? Do you want to bring all the doubts you have? Do you want to bring the negativity? Do you want to bring what I call the yeah buts? Yeah, but I can't. Yeah, but I don't have the time. Yeah, but that doesn't work for me. Yeah, but I can't stop my busy mind. It's what the Buddhists call the monkey mind. The monkey mind, it's like a monkey that keeps jumping from branch to branch on a tree. We have to be aware of where the traps are. The mind is a busy thing, and the mind can be a big troublemaker. And here's what we need to do. We need to discipline it. And if discipline isn't your thing, okay. But what I want to say to you is if you want to get into shape and you just think you're going to get into shape without exercising, then you're kidding yourself. If you want to diet, then you got to give up certain foods. That's the trade-off. And we know that. So when people say it's too much work, I like to tell you that I have a magic pill for you to swallow, but I don't. I wish I did. Wouldn't that be great?
That's what they did in The Matrix. I mean, you're saying it's like...
I hear you. Well, listen, I'm a futurist in the way I think, although I talk about being in the present. My mind sometimes goes into the future, and I love it because I like to take that ride. I believe that we are going to get there, but we have some steps to take along the way. With all the research they're now doing with neuroscience and finding out the most amazing things about our brain is malleable. Our brain changes. Those neurotransmitters that are firing through our brain literally create new neural pathways. And that, in my mind, is very matrixy. We're talking about the future brain, but let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's take these steps. I know that it can be a drag, and I know there are people that are listening to me, and they're the butters. So what I want to bring you into the conversation and say, can you join me on just these little initial steps? Just try it and see how you feel.
Well,
see what changes about your own thinking mind.
And that's exactly where my next thought was lying, is because I can remember going through this process myself, and I know that others who are in the process of going through it to higher levels, like myself and others, there can be this point at which you start to feel, for lack of a better word, is fake, and you're writing, Live True as a guide to teach us that mindfulness and authenticity are somehow connected, but yet we're doing things that we're not used to, we have no background in some cases, trying to intentionally exercise discipline over our thoughts. All of those things feel fake and foreign at the time. How do we reconcile mindfulness and authenticity?
That's a really good question. First of all, I want to say, ask yourself what's feeling fake. Take a deep dive into yourself and say, what's feeling fake to me right now? Like what's feeling inauthentic? And if you're an ambitious person, or you're dynamic, or you're an entrepreneur, or you're someone who's just getting started, what feels fake to you? Listen, we're living in a very, demanding time. I've talked to people who are very much on social media. They're very much on the fast track to success, and they're fessing up. They're owning that they feel fake about the fact that they have to be super successful on social media. Pressure is high right now. So what I want to say about that is check in with yourself. What's feeling fake, and what can you do to switch that up? You might feel that you have to put on this persona, this role, this identity, so that people are going to think you're cool. And that if you're really who you are, they may go or think you're not cool. What I want to say about that is, says who? Oftentimes that's in your own mind. Real is pretty great in a lot of ways. People sell themselves short. I know somebody that was really struggling with addiction, and it was very shameful for them, and they didn't want to talk about it, and they kept hiding from it. And one day they were very vulnerable, and they really showed their vulnerability to me. And I said to them, you look so real right now. In my opinion, you look the most beautiful I've seen in a long time. And that was very profound for them, because really what I was saying is real is good and real is beautiful. How many people have stories of falling in love with somebody or meeting their mate? And they'll say, oh, wow, I went to the gym. Women tell me all the time, I went to the gym, I had no makeup on, I was sweating, and I met my man. When we think we're supposed to go out of the house and look like supermodels and look like superheroes, I love Cindy Crawford, the top model, who says, hey, guys, I don't wake up looking like this.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Let's get real. Let's get real, people. Let's get real. Real is the new sexy as far as I'm concerned. What I posted on my Instagram is authenticity is sexy. Now, if you don't want to join me on that, that's okay. But where did we suddenly think that real or authentic isn't cool or sexy? I want to demystify that. I want to deconstruct that. I want to say that real is the new cool.
Got it. So how does this all play into helping the entrepreneur become a better version of themselves, or maybe even increasing the bottom line from a revenue standpoint?
Listen, I love entrepreneurs because they're willing to go for it. I mean, that to me is kind of my idea of an entrepreneur. Some of the definitions of an entrepreneur is a magnet, a tycoon. It's like those are pretty powerful things to call somebody. It's like you're a whiz kid, you're a big wig, you're a go-getter. Think about those definitions. That means you're really proactive. So why don't you give yourself credit just for that? Say, hey, I'm willing to be a go-getter. I'm willing to be proactive. So if something gets in the way of that, again, check in with yourself. Check in with what are the thoughts you're having that are trying to trip you up? What are the thoughts that you're having? I say be in alignment. I say something called thought alignment. Wake up in the morning and get your thoughts on straight. What thoughts are you thinking that are promoting your entrepreneurship? What are the thoughts that are going to go get you out there to let people see that you are a go-getter, that you're somebody that can make something happen? You gotta make that happen. You gotta really, beef yourself up by the thoughts that you're telling yourself. That's the type of steroids I'm talking about. Thought steroids. Enough of this artificial stuff.
I can hear it in your voice, how much this means to you. And what's interesting to me is how it is one of those things that takes consistent and disciplined practice in order to be able to master, which suggests that you've been doing this for quite some time. But I have a question. Why share this information? Why help entrepreneurs? Why do what you're doing in the way that you're doing it?
Entrepreneurs are the visionaries of the future, and I work a lot with millennials. I work with a lot of different demographics. I'm very excited about the generations that are coming up. Mm-hmm. And I think that entrepreneurship really is the container for visions. That those that are really thinking about how they can change things, how they can change whether it's a business platform, technology, the environment, whatever it is you think you can bring your vision to, I say go for it. So that excites me first and foremost. And because my work is all about thought transformation, I feel that it's so important to be able to share that out into the world with entrepreneurs for sure, because that is the change that we're going to see in the world, and we're really living in a time where it can be very challenging. And I think that a lot of the old paradigms and a lot of the old mindsets don't work anymore. And I love the way you introduce the show, Jay, because when you bring up things like the Matrix and you talk about superheroes, it's not about just sitting in a movie and looking at these superheroes and going, hey, I'm really excited and I'm inspired and I'm turned on right now because these guys, these heroes or heroines are really changing the landscape of the universe. That's why it gets us all excited. We need to be that right now. So I feel that thought is the most powerful thing to work with. Changing up our thoughts to create and manifest what we want, to me, is the most powerful thing. And I feel that that is really my wheelhouse. That's what excites me. And I want to share it with the world. I want to say, let's do this. Let's be the change. We can make this happen.
I love how you want to take the responsibility and lead from the front. So that's exciting and encouraging, especially on something that has we'll just say it, a number of stigmas to it. Because I know for myself, I was recently diagnosed autistic and ADHD. I had no idea, mostly because of my son. And going through this, when mindfulness has become a part of my life in a very fast way that I did not understand before, and I'm still to a lot of degrees getting used to. So what would you say to those entrepreneurs? Because I know for myself, there were just things that that tripped me up without me necessarily realizing that was going on. But how do you actually talk to someone who's afraid of the stigma that comes along with you're doing this meditation thing, or there's nothing really going on with you. That type of stuff it's out there in the world, and I think it's preventing a number of people from even seeking you out.
Wow, interesting. And thank you for that share. I appreciate that.
Sure.
First of all, meditation, mindfulness, let's just take mindfulness, which is a quality that is inherent in all of us. There's a lot of buzz around mindfulness right now and authenticity. Mindfulness is a inherent quality that we all have. And what that really means is our ability to be present, our ability to be in the moment right here, right now. So to be specific about that, you and I are having this conversation, and I don't know about you, but I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm not thinking about what I'm going to have for lunch, and I'm not thinking about what happened yesterday. I'm really engaged. I'm showing up with you, Jay,
right.
And I'm really enjoying this conversation. As far as stigma, I've been doing this for a long time, and I remember when things like meditation and, health food or anything that talked about mind, body, and spirit was considered woo-woo or new age.
Right.
Not so much anymore. If you have mindfulness on the cover of Time and Newsweek, what does that tell you? It has hit the mainstream. And, this is something that is so valuable. It's like a pot of gold as far as I'm concerned, because when we discipline our mind, when we're able to self-regulate, and you talk about things like ADD and ADHD, which, so many people are coming to become more aware that they suffer from that. With everything that's bombarding our senses, like technology, media, our devices, of course we're unable to be centered and focused, that we feel like we're just so hyperkinetic out of our mind, we can't even sit still in a moment. So that's what's so powerful about this cultivating and developing this skill of how to be present. I want to use it like in a warrior metaphor, that like if you were trying to reach the bullseye, if you're trying to hit that, dart, or you were trying to hit something straight to the center of something, you'd have to really quiet the mind. You'd have to really organize your thoughts so that the monkey mind that I talked about isn't running you ragged. I don't know why people give it those labels. It's very curious to me. Is it airy-fairy, or is there a stigma around the athletes today? Some of the top athletes,
right.
Whether it's the NBA, or it's, in the NFL, they're meditators.
Right.
These guys are practicing mindfulness. Their coaches are taking them into a mindfulness meditation before they go out there and play the game. And some of these athletes are coming forward and saying, mindfulness is where it's at. Meditation is where it's at. It's like taking control, taking power over the busyness of the mind. So we got to take the stigma off that. That is just absolutely, talk about something that isn't real. I think there's a lot of stigma put on these things out of fear, because people are, what's that? Ooh, I don't know what that is. Ooh, I don't even know if I can do that.
Well,
and I think,
but there's also it's also one of those things where you can't necessarily see it. I'm looking at you. You look fine. But whereas if you have crutches, clearly something's up. It's, something broken, and I think because we can't necessarily see it sometimes, that also exists as well.
That's true.
So I know that there's a number of people who have listened this far. They have picked up what you have been putting down, and they want to find out more. What's going to be the best way for them to track you down?
Check me out with my my website, oranadrich.com. All my social media is my name, Ora Nadrich, ORANADRICH. And I love hearing from people. I love connecting. I want to know what's going on with you. I say we're a lot more powerful as a we than we are as a me. So I love to connect. So check me out, send me an email, reach out to me. Let me know where you're at and what you're interested in.
Now, as we wind down, I have a question for you, because I'm really curious. I'm expecting your answer is going to be so unique. No pressure, though. But I am expecting that simply because of what you do, who you are, and the stand that you've taken in the world. Let's pretend for a moment that there's a person or two who's been listening this entire time. They've reached what I like to call the precipice of decision. They've been, you know what? They're drawing that line in the sand, or they're like, you know what? That's it. I am going to start that business. I am going to go from 6 to 7 to 8 figures. Now is the time, and it's going to happen because I got to stop, take control of this stuff. Now, like I know, when we reach that precipice of a decision, what tends to happen is that we have a companion, and that companion comes in the form of a voice, and it's a voice that reminds us how it didn't work last time, why it might not work this time. And who are you to think that you could actually do anything like that? And for some people, they are related to that voice. So my question to you is as follows. Let's pretend that this time it's going to be different. This time they're going to follow through, and they're going to do exactly what you say. And they're going to do so in the next 24 to 48 hours. So Ora, what do they do?
I want them to make sure that their thoughts are supporting this vision, whether it's the 6-figure number that they want, that they know they can reach. I want them to be so aware of any thought that gets in the way of it. And think about it in the way that example I gave you earlier. Think about that somebody that walked up to you and said, ha ha ha, really? You think you're going to make that 6-figure? Who are you? I want you to answer that back. And what do you want to say? Think of the positive, replace thoughts that you can replace that negative doubt that's going to come into your mind. You can do this. You've got this. You have the ability to change every single negative thought that pops up into your mind. Any doubt, any fear-based thought, I want you to switch it out. And I want you to tell yourself its positive counterpart. You can do this. You can change and transform the thoughts that you have, and you're going to reach that goal if you do that. And I believe in you, and I know that you can.
Love it. I knew it would be different, and that's what I was excited to hear. And I definitely appreciate the depth with which you pursue your work and helping so many become bigger, better, better versions of themselves. And let me be the first to say thanks for taking the time to invest here with us today at the Cashflow Diary.
Thank you, Jay, for having me.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what time it is. It's time for you to move at the speed of instruction. What does that mean? Well, today that means oranadrich.com. Why? Because like I know, getting closer to mindfulness, getting closer to being the authentic version of yourself will help you to live true, which happens to be the title of the book. But even more importantly today, you and I learned something very unique. One, we know now that you can develop a skill of being present. And most importantly, we got to go get our thoughts on straight. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been fun talking to you today. I look forward to talking to you soon. Until next time.